I regret that so much. I think about opportunities when I might have learned about this and I didn't, and what that, meant in terms of time that Amelia spent trapped, essentially.
Could you tell me where you're originally from?
Most recently from Philadelphia.
Hmm.
We just moved here about a year ago.
And why did you guys move here?
We moved because of the spelling. Amelia started spelling right as the pandemic began, a couple of months into it, and we were making trips about every 6 weeks to come and see Dana so that Amelia could continue to practice her spelling in person. And, in that process, we started to meet a lot of the people in this incredible community, and we just made a decision that we wanted to, relocate here and be close to other spellers and families that we knew. It's an amazing community.
Hmm. So why, so how big is the speller community, like online, on
Yeah.
Facebook, or and why is it so concentrated here, do you
Yeah, I think that the reason that it's concentrated here, just speculation, is because of Dana Johnson, who is just absolutely amazing in terms of coaching spelling. But it's also the community, and Evelyn Moldal, who runs the Tampa Bay Letterboard community. She is incredible, and the work that she has done in terms of just building community and bringing families and spellers together. That is, from my perspective, the thing that is unique about this community, is that there is someone who is just absolutely focused on the social aspects and the community building aspects of, bringing all of us together.
think? And so, how important, like in the very beginning, a lot of parents tell me that they their kid didn't look like they wanted social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but after like Amelia started spelling, how did that change? How did it
Mm-hmm.
change for you, the community? How important is that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just absolutely something different because in Philadelphia, we literally didn't know a single family with any kind, with a speller, um, and any families that we knew that had, children who are autistic, there really was no social interaction with them. So just even one family here would be a big difference for me. I mean, the fact that there's so many and they're so supportive is incredible. For Amelia, she was able to start having open communications, with Dana after, I would say, about 2 to 3 months. And one of the most incredible interactions that we had was actually at Dana's clinic, and it was just maybe a month or two after Amelia started spelling. There was another speller there, Alex Ferraro. I don't know if you're interviewing him, but he was there with Evelyn, was his CRP, and Amelia was going through, and he wanted to say something to her, and he gave her just this beautiful piece of advice about how much his life had changed as a result of spelling, and kind of encouraging her and saying, you can do this. It's hard work, but it's really going to change your life. And that meant so much to her. But I think it was also, that was sort of an opening of, wow, here's a peer of mine who is able to spell openly and give me that advice. And there were also, though, other things that started fairly quickly. Through Dana's clinic, there was a group that met. It was maybe, it was less than 3 months after Amelia started spelling. She started attending online a group that I think was called Interconnections at the time. And they would talk about, so it was maybe 5 or 6 of, teenagers. They would talk about things like music and, other social things, which was completely new and different for her. And I remember when we were still living in Philadelphia, when that group sort of took a break, and now this is about 6 months into Amelia's spelling, or maybe 5 months, she said that it had been sort of the most important and impactful experience that she had had. And so for me, that was her first foray into kind of, a social group, and it was mostly online. But soon after that, she started meeting more friends, and some of those same friends that had been in the social group, she started meeting them in person. We would make visits to this area, and that was incredible. So, it's there's so much that you don't know when there's no communication, and so that kind of, assumption, I would say, which is really what I think it is, that perhaps your child or speller doesn't want to have social interaction. Yeah, I mean, it just everything that we know now, I think, says that, at least for a lot of individuals, that's wrong. And certainly for Amelia, I mean, friendship is, so, so important to her.
So where does Amelia go to school, and
Mm.
how does that, like the whole accommodations work?
Right. So right now, Amelia is taking classes online at, a high school that is just it's a typical high school, an online high school, and she's earning credits that way. But she is planning, beginning this year, to attend a local school. And we're working through that process of accommodations in terms of being able to have a communication partner with her and how that will work in what will likely be a combination of in-person and online classes.
And how do you think she'll take to that? Like,
She really wants it. She has wanted that for a long time. It's been a goal of hers to be able to do that. And, from the place where she was, which was, as she had explained, literally um, reviewing kindergarten material over and over again. She was homeschooled, to being able, right now to take classes online, at this on, with this online high school, and to take classes, that interest her. So, she is just finishing right now advanced placement English literature. She's taking advanced placement history, and she's taken other classes that she enjoys and that are interesting to her. And that, is such a long way from where we were that, it's hard sometimes to really process the, just the change that has occurred, but the additional aspect of being able to be in a classroom with her peers, also with that, the kind of information, the kind of learning that, interest her, that's, a further goal. And I think that for her, it's something that she really wants to experience.
so like all like having like a CRP and
Mm-hmm.
getting someone like that and all the other like things that come with um someone who is a non-speaker and
Yeah.
a speller must have like there must be like financial worries as well,
Mm-hmm.
and not like everyone is like has that like flexibility of doing that. So
Exactly.
what ultimately like how does like society have to shift in the way
Yeah.
like this whole thing's viewed and
Yeah, I mean, this
supported?
is an absolutely critical issue, because it takes significant resources to be able to, privately engage a CRP, to, take classes. That is, the way that Amelia is able to take classes online is that, she's being helped, in terms of having a CRP with her during those classes, and that's essential. And that, the fact that what's necessary in order for that to allow that to happen is something that takes, significant resources, is something that really needs to change. I mean, that should be something that is available to students in public schools. That kind of assistance, I think, should be available for, just having that support, and that is something I've heard Amelia and her friends talk about in terms of it should be the same kind of support that's given to a deaf or blind person. That it should just be understood that that's necessary, and there should be a willingness, to have public funding for that, so that the difference between being able to have the education that you want or not shouldn't, just be dependent on whether or not your family is, happens to be able to, have the resources to pay those fees.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so like right now,
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of parents saying that they don't have time to try and tackle the huge like issue because their child is what they're focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so what do you like? But then, and there's like hundreds of thousands of parents out there. So
Yeah.
what would you say like to these parents, in like those who don't believe, those who
Yeah.
read online articles and research?
Yeah. I mean, one of the processes that I went through when, you know, after actually the first time that Amelia met Dina, and we ended up, having a few sessions with her over the following couple of days. But as we were driving back from this area um, to Philadelphia, I spent a lot of that, very long car ride, 2 days crying because, you go through a lot of regret in terms of, you know, not having started this sooner. So, I regret that so much. I think about opportunities when I might have learned about this and I didn't, and what that, meant in terms of time that Amelia spent trapped essentially. So, to those parents, I would just say, as Amelia just alluded to, think about sort of the relative risk, the risk of trying something like this. There's not harm in that, but the harm of not trying it, that is just, something that you really can't get back.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, I believe that it's absolutely never too late, for an individual to start spelling. And there are, amazing stories of individuals who have started spelling in their 20s and 30s and everything else. But, it's to me, it's about the time that is spent frustrated and in despair and doing everything possible to shorten that time. If you have the knowledge, you know, if you know better, do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so what was Amelia's initial like diagnosis in the
Mm.
very beginning?
So, initially it was like what I think they refer to as PDD, pervasive developmental disorder.
Like,
And then, I think autism is such a broad label um, at this point. But, and I think that a lot of us really now look at this as a body control issue, and the apraxia and the, the struggle to control body movements, and how that just has such an impact. And there's this additional complication, I think, to really, I hope that parents who have not tried this yet will think about, which is that there are non-speakers and there are unreliable speakers, and sometimes it's referred to under the umbrella of non-speakers. But for Amelia, she has some speech. She you know can use words and has speech that she uses. It is not necessarily reliable, and it definitely is not what she intends to say all of the time. That I think that sometimes having a little bit of speech makes parents, and I think, I absolutely made this mistake of thinking, well, she has a little bit of speech, so let's try to build on that little bit of speech. And we spent years and years in speech therapy, and, making very little or no progress. But the idea was, well, she has speech, so let's try to build on that. And even when I was first researching, spelling to communicate, um, some individuals, actually asked, well, why would you try that? Or maybe that isn't the right method because she can, essentially, she can talk. But it's, that I think that's an easy mistake to make. And, there is a huge difference between that limited speech and, communication through the letterboard or, typing on a keyboard.
is there like a particular story that you like tell about like unreliable speech with
Uh,
Amelia?
yeah, it is. and this is, I think, one of the most difficult things about unreliable speech is that it um, it can lead you to just a completely wrong understanding of what is being understood. And so the one thing that I remember is that, you know, some of the traditional therapies kind of go through what I call scripts, right? You know, teaching children, okay, you know, if you're asked this, say this. You know, if someone says to you hello, then you say how are you? Or, you know, if you're asked what you did today, you know, let's go over kind of the options. And so you get into this kind of, you know, I think the idea is to create a sort of back and forth, you know, to create conversation. So one of the things that you know, we used to be kind of coached by these professionals, you know, who, you know, were, you know, many, many years of these programs, was to ask Amelia, you know, if she had been away, you know, with someone during the day, what did you have for lunch today? And you know, and you would know, I mean, there's an objective, okay, this is what was had for lunch today, maybe, or where did you go for lunch today? Um, and I would ask her, where did you go for lunch today? As a, you know, a way to kind of practice this back and forth. And and I would know, for example, that she had, you know, gone to a pizza restaurant that day. And I would ask her, you know, Amelia, where did you go for lunch today? And she would say, I went to Whole Foods. And then, you know, when you hear that, right, and you know that it's wrong, it's just, you know, there's what actually happened and then what you're hearing come out. You just, it's hard to process because you think, well, you know, you don't know whether there is, if you don't know anything about unreliable speech, you think, wow, you know, she doesn't remember where she went to lunch or what, all kinds of things go through your mind. So it's just, it's extremely misleading. And, you know, I think it can be very hard to hear someone say something and then to ignore that or to believe that that's not really their intention.
Hmm. Do you remember the first thing Amelia said when she was able to spell, or?
Yeah, so um, the I have a couple of memories about this that are like just really clear in terms of different times that she, different steps that she took, and what those things meant in terms of, you know, both what had been happening before and the misunderstanding about everything. But, you know, one of the things was during the very first time that we met with Dana, those first couple of days, um, she, you know, was using sort of the three boards, you know, the three stencils. And she showed Amelia a video of a class that had been recorded because this was the pandemic at the school that Dana founded, Invictus Academy. And, you know, during the class, the teacher was talking about, it was an English class, um, was talking about certain literary terms and said, use the word illusion. So Dana had this video kind of going in the background. The teacher uses the word illusion, and then she asked Amelia a few minutes later, you know, essentially what was the term that the teacher used to, you know, to refer to a situation where, you know, you're referencing something, whatever it might be. And Amelia spelled on the three boards illusion. And I was just, I mean, now that doesn't seem at all remarkable. Now it's like, well, of course she would spell that, you know, that's, but at the time it was so outside of any understanding I had. I mean, it changed so much of what I thought. One, because Amelia had been literally sitting there doing something else while this was going on. And, you know, the day before I would have said, oh, she's not paying attention. She, you know, not only would I have assumed, you know, incorrectly that she wasn't paying attention, that she didn't know what that word meant, and that that material was completely not what, you know, she should be learning. There was just so much in kind of that one, you know, her being able to spell that one word that I was just blown away by that. And that's the, kind of the beginning of thinking about what are the implications of that, right? Because you do have to kind of have a reckoning with yourself about what that means, in terms of all the other decisions you've made.
Hmm. Yeah, that's it's amazing. And I feel like that story is very similar for a lot of people who found spelling, and
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine the people who could never find that their entire lives.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's one of the first things that you really think about, which is there's like the horrible regret of, I can't believe I didn't find this sooner. But there's also like an amazing feeling of just being grateful that you did find it, especially in the current situation where it's not, I mean, it just, you feel like it's just by chance that you found it. And then you think, wow, what if that hadn't happened? What if there hadn't been that one conversation where someone mentioned it? We could still be in that same situation right now. So that's like, there's absolutely the regret, but, there's also just being incredibly thankful that we heard about it and then that we were able to connect with the right people, that could help Amelia to get to a place where she could, communicate what's inside her.
Mhm. Gotcha. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I close the interview?
Oh no, just thank you so much for doing this.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Amazing, really.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.